Hey, how you doing? So this one is going to be a short live because this is like the the end basically of the first part on the book How Minds Change. The previous like it's not usually like supposed to be that long. It's just that we had like a good long talk with Debug Your Brain in the last one, so it made it extra long. So sorry about that if it's annoying. But yeah, so we have like 5 pages worth of notes to go through and talk about, like the rest of the book. So let's go. All right. Also, the part one is in the description below. So we ended before this part. So yeah, this in the book. That's a quote from the book. It takes fewer calories to assume if everyone around me says something is true, it is. If I read this three times, it's likely. If it feels good, keep doing it. So this is like just how humans work. Um, Evolution has selected these behaviors just because it worked for us, not necessarily because it was, like we were valuing truth above our survival or our social harmony in our groups. Uh, that's how it works. So, finding what motivates people matters a lot to change their minds according to psychology. But that doesn't mean in our case, go lead for or like could lead with the environment or health, because these are issues, like these are things that are separate from veganism. Even if the concerns pop up, obviously we need to address them, but it's different to address concerns relating to the environment and or health than it is to lead with like veganism is about that. And is also like problems, there's a bunch of different problems. For example, like of course, like this is the only movement that animals have for their right not to be exploited, and so if we imbue this movement with like anything else, it erases them in some way. And also you could be eco-friendly and be you can be non-eco okay, you could be a non-vegan living in an okay non like man, my thoughts. I just woke up, sorry. So you could be a non-vegan living an eco-friendly life in the sense of like you could eat insects, but that would be even more victims of exploitation. It would be even worse in the sense of the amount of victims. So it would be obviously not vegan and horrible because insects are sentient. And so yeah, for example, that. And also you could be unhealthy and a vegan because it has nothing to do with health. And you could be very healthy as a vegan because I don't know, you plan your meals well, and it's not difficult to be healthy as a vegan on like, an animal free diet, but it has nothing to do with it. You could be either. So it really doesn't, you know, um follow that it's about health or the environment. And also like what other movement uses like other reasons to motivate people to benefit the victims of that movement. Like for example, I actually was talking with someone yesterday about this. It was talking about how like you wouldn't be against war because it's bad for the environment. Like you wouldn't be against people dropping bombs because it's bad for the environment. It makes no sense. That would be an added concern, of course, but you want to protect the rights of the people being bombed, kind of thing, So that made a lot of sense to me. And also, when it comes to health, of course, we're not even talking about like other forms of exploitation that have nothing to do with health. For example, wearing the skin of other animals or going to rodeos, things like this. Okay, yeah, and also so this is like again, I'm still talking about the point of like finding what motivates people matters a lot to change their minds. But I just wanted to mention real quick that the practices that logically flow from veganism aren't like it's not what is veganism. How would you say? Like for example, you wouldn't say that like refusing to call someone a racist slur is racism. No, like racism is the sense that we shouldn't discriminate on skin color and stuff like that, right? um But like obviously when you're anti-racism, you aren't going to do a number of things like whatever, take advantage of people with like of colored people, or call them slurs or whatever, disrespect them because of the color of their skin. So it's kind of the same thing, because you could do, like, for example, you could be on an animal-free diet for a number of reasons. For example, the environment, or um, religious reasons. You could be, it could be any number of things, but that wouldn't mean that you would be anti-exploitation of other animals. Hello, animals are here with us, not for us. um, yes. So what I would opt for instead of focusing on environmental health. Besides, another point on that, I feel like people overestimate how important these issues are to humans in general. I was myself in an environmental activism group, um, and none of them were vegan, and they knew, like, I told them there were several vegans in the group, and I've told them that it's like one of the best things you could do for the environment is to live an animal-free life, in sense of not using them for their skin or whatever, or for food or whatever. And they didn't change, they didn't care. So it and they are activists, they're literally spending their free time doing that stuff. So I'm not even convinced that that would work, to be honest. But that being said, I have nothing, absolutely nothing against people doing, for example, like the plant-based treaty. I think is amazing, or like basically any type of activism that is about the animal-free diet, and making sure that people understand that it's fully, and relying on environment or health. Like, it's okay to do that. Just I think it's an opportunity cost, but it could help the movement in the way that it's sharing information, and maybe it's easier for people to think about, because it's not like the shame or the guilt that comes with the vegan message when it comes to that. But um the reason why I don't have a problem with this approach is that it's not making it about veganism. It's not saying veganism is about the environment or health, and so there's no real problem with that. You know what I mean? So, hello, Pigstream. So yes, I would say figure out what their values are and show them that they align with veganism. For example, show them how other animals are individuals through their experiences with their loved dogs, their loved pets, whatever, or the animals they've seen being funny and loving on social media, and bridge the gap between their individuality and what we expect the treatment of individuals to be, or show that their individuality is very much like humans, and how people think slavery is wrong, etc. Like, link up these things. Okay, so the who is important in persuasion. So the communicator must seem trustworthy, credible, and reliable. We ask ourselves if they're an expert, if they're trying to trick us in some way, and if they agree with the groups with which we identify. So that's tricky, right? Because already, just by virtue of being in the vegan group, we're in some trouble. But apart from that, like, this is why maybe I used to swear by um, reverse psychology, but now I'm thinking, because of this is why I stopped. Now I'm thinking, well, they feel like I tricked them, and that is a problem apparently for persuasion, because of the report. That's super important. So that's a shame, because I love reverse psychology. But so I have a quote. Quote, but even when people discredit a message from an untrustworthy source, if the argument is compelling, it will linger in their minds. If we hear the same information presented in other formats or from other speakers, the association with the untrustworthy source weakens. As our reasons for discounting the ideas wash away, the persuasiveness of the message remains. In psychology, this is called the sleeper effect. Haha. An initial rejection is often followed by a ghastly increase in agreement over time. When people's reasons for rejecting a message are more about the communicator than the message itself, presenting it from multiple sources can sometimes turn a failure into a success. End quote. And this is so huge for vegan activists to know about, and I think it's well known at this point. Maybe I'm not sure, but it's just very comforting, the fact that this is an actual thing that's been observed. So yeah, if you've had a shit conversation, just remember that the sleeper effect is something that is happening anyways. Of course, that's not an excuse to not do your best to keep the report good and so that it's as efficient as you can, but it can be really helpful to remember that. Um, okay, the what? Um, a message becomes more impactful when paired with popular counter arguments, what psychologists call a two-sided communication. So in studies of courtroom trials, if the defense brings up damaging evidence first, then the defense seems more credible to the jury. That works for any other format. It shows confidence in your ideas by revealing you've considered the other side and you seem trustworthy as you show your respect for the audience's intelligence. So that's interesting. Maybe we should play with that more, I guess. Um, quote, given that it is better to provide both sides of an argument, which side should come first? The research suggests that presenting the argument most in line with the audience's current attitude is the most effective. That way, a person feels confident and positive about their own attitudes and will be far more tolerant of counter attitudinal appeals. Saying I don't no, saying I know you don't want to go to sleep, but you have to go to school in the morning is far more effective than you have to go to school in the morning, so you better go to sleep. End quote. So this is what we do basically when we do like the bridging or like the agreeing kind of with some aspect of their concern, their feeling about the concern, or the fact that a lot of people think about it like this. And so we do that, and then we go into like the rebuttal basically. So that's something that we do, I guess. To whom a message must match the processing abilities and motivation of its audience. Quote, the simplest trick is to frame messages as rhetorical questions. Wouldn't it be nice if marijuana was legal? Encourages people to produce explanations and justifications for their attitudes. Do you think marijuana legalization should be legal? Merely primes people to express them as conclusions. End quote. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Um, I don't remember that. Okay. In which channel? The message should fit the medium through which it is conveyed. No matter, like, quote, no matter the message, face to face messaging is far and away the most effective channel. We are biologically hardwired to respond to the human face. So, this is something to keep in mind because this is why we should prioritize outreach over a lot of things. Um, so that's why I've been thinking about like increasing the amount of outreach I do and maybe doing less of other things, like shorts. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna increase it just because of that. Quote, facial recognition is a biological imperative because face to face communication establishes the essential rapport that aids in the receptivity of any person to person message. And also, and like there's it's just also that there's so much, yeah, like there's so much body language. um that's what they're talking about, like the body language is like, I don't remember, it's like 70% of our communication is through our body language. And you can tell just by like when you have misunderstanding through message or comment, the comment section, just because you couldn't figure out the tone or whatever. Quote, the research is clear that if you can produce content that encourages the people who hear your messages to interact with one another and have conversations among themselves about your product, message, or candidate, then you can increase the odds of your persuasive message changing their minds almost as if you had engaged them face to face. That's very interesting. I mean, end quote, sorry. So, like the fact that it strikes up conversation. And what's really cool is that when it comes to our vegan activism, it's almost always going to be the case that they're going to just at least mention the fact that they were interviewed in the street about veganism, and then they might like vent about us or whatever. But that could be good. So, because it's so triggering. Okay, so another way of like another format is street epistemology. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. It's basically okay, there's a website about it. Like it's called like streetepistemology.com. So street epistemology is a conversational tool that helps people reflect on the quality of their reasons and the reliability of the methods used to derive one's confidence level in their deeply held beliefs. So it's not really about like, it's not so much about arguing over like information or data or like the content of their argument. It's about the format, like the way they think, and you're basically going to challenge that. So yeah, I'm hesitant about using that at all actually when it comes to veganism, because most people don't even know what it really means, veganism. They think it's just like a diet or something. um And also, street epistemology isn't about changing people's minds, but about improving people's ways of thinking, which is, I mean, it's a good thing, but it's not really what we're trying to do here. So they say that if your goal is to change someone's mind, and not to let them examine things without caring about the result that much, it won't work. So it's not for us, basically. End quote. No, quote, the quickest way to end a conversation before it begins is to communicate hostility, end quote. And another one, quote, when you feel safe, you open up more, end quote. Starting with questions about themselves and their lives for rapport can help a lot, but I never feel like that's natural and comfortable, honestly. Like it feels so forced and weird and awkward. So I don't do that myself, but maybe I just don't know how to do it well. Let me know if you do. So that's, yeah, I have a problem with that. I used to do it like in the beginning, but it was so weird and awkward. It's like you just get someone off the street and you end up like you start with asking them quite random questions about their personal life. It's very strange. Also felt to me like they felt like that was I was wasting their time because we weren't getting into it that fast. So I don't know. But it's important to know that unpacking concepts like true can help be on the same page about them. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So like that's street epistemology, like talking about like what does um true means to you, what does true mean to you, things like that, but it's not very relevant to us, whatever. Deep canvassing and street epistemology are very similar, but deep canvassing is goal oriented, the goal being changing their mind, when street epistemology is improving their ways of thinking, um, and like just making them question things, but that can lead to many different results. So, I mean, it's always going to be helpful that they think better, right? Because veganism is just logical, but with the amount of time we have with them, not really. super efficient, I think, to do it that way. Okay. Okay, quote. Tamaria said her experience as a psychiatrist told her that in any persuasion attempt, your priority should be to curate the conversation in a way that strengthens the relationship between you and the other person. And every second work to demonstrate that to the other person that you are not an other, that you are not a member of what they consider them. At the same time, do the same thing within yourself. Try your best not to see them as an other and not to frame them within the category of them. I asked her about her method, if it had steps, and she said it did. First, ask a non threatening question that's open ended. Something like, I've been reading a lot about vaccines lately. Have you seen any of that? Next, just listen for a while. Then communicate your curiosity and establish rapport by asking a non judgmental follow up question. Next, reflect and paraphrase. Summarize what you've heard so far to make the other person feel heard and respected. Then look for common ground in the person's values. You might not agree with their argument, but you can communicate that you too have values like theirs, fears and anxieties, concerns, and goals like they do. You just think the best way to deal with those issues is slightly different. Then share a personal narrative about your values to further connect. Finally, if your views have changed over time, share how. End quote. So she's not talking about deep canvassing right there, but it's a method quite similar to deep canvassing, basically. And by the way, like in deep canvassing, they want you to share a personal story of someone who is impacted by the issue you're talking about. And so in that effort, I'm actually making another type of voiceover footage. I keep making them this year, but I mean, like I just made one already. But this one is literally just going through the life of a cow exploited for her breast milk. Hello, Raz. And it's going to be very like just following that individual throughout her life and what could have been. So yeah, I'm working on that right now and I'm very excited about it. It should work much better because like the reason why I'm doing that is because humans, like I mean psychology, I've been knowing that for a while that humans cannot empathize with a number, like a big number of beings. It's not a thing. We can't relate to that because it's conceptual to us. We can empathize very well with an individual though. So that's why um I'm doing that. And yeah, so I will also make it available for people if you're interested in using that in outreach because the video I made, like the footage, the voiceover footage I made in the past was aimed at outreach, but then I realized like the voiceover is really not adapted for outreach. It's very much just a video for YouTube really because it doesn't ask questions. It's just like I'm gonna tell you what's going on kind of thing. So um I'm going to ban you because you're going to be annoying. Yeah. Anyhow, but thanks for watching though. Feel free to comment below what you think about the live stream, but you're going to be derailing the chat though. So okay. Where was I? Where was I? Okay, so basically the key is to look for common ground. You might not agree with their arguments, but try to communicate that you have common goals, values, fears, and anxieties. The change conversation pyramid is another method similar to deep canvassing and street epistemology. It was created by the psychiatrist Karen Tamarius, so it's basically the thing we just read. Okay, so the steps of that method, which is called again, um, the change conversation pyramid. You don't really have to think too much about that one, I guess, because we already it's very similar to deep canvassing. But anyhow, quote: here are the steps. 1. Build rapport. Assure the other person you aren't out to shame them, and then ask for consent to explore their reasoning. 2. Ask, On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are they to vaccinate? If one asks, why would other people who aren't hesitant be higher on that scale? 3. If above 1, ask, why not lower? 4. Once they've offered their reasons, repeat them back in your own words. Ask if you've done a good job summarizing. Repeat until they are satisfied. End quote. So yeah, it's like again like this, like the scale they use, and it's very similar. Uh, It's interesting, like in the last stream, Debug Your Brain talked about how it's instead of asking them why they're not at like 10, meaning I agree that humans should go vegan, why aren't they lower than they are? Like for example, if they're at 5, why aren't they at like lower than 5? Basically, like why do you agree in some sense that people should go vegan? Then they're just gonna have to make your case for you. And I think that's genius. So that's basically what she's doing in there. Um, an open, engaged, empathetic listener is far more persuasive than any fact or figure, which is interesting. Tamarius explains that people, and also when she says like you're not out to shame them, I think it's great in the sense of like the attitude, in the sense of like for the report, but I would not say that in vegan outreach because you want them to feel embarrassed that they hold their position, but you don't want them to feel like you are shaming them. So it's a very delicate balance because they have to be uncomfortable though. So it's like, but you can say something. You can say, "I'm not trying to make you look a certain way," and I think that could be good. Maybe I don't know. I haven't figured that out, but it's something to think about. Timarius explains that people only change their minds within a learning mindset. They need to feel safe to feel motivated to learn. Before attempting to persuade them, you must move them into a state of active learning. Then you have to be like, um, yeah. Motivational interviewing is another format we can look into. So basically, it's a counseling method that involves enhancing a patient's motivation to change by means of four guiding principles represented by the acronym RULE. Resist the writing reflex, understand the patient's own motivations, listen with empathy, and empower the patient. Quote. Okay. Quote, according to motivational interviewing, the four most common reasons a person is not yet ready to enter the contemplation stage are: 1. They haven't been confronted with information that challenges their motivations. 2. They currently feel their agency is being threatened. 3. Previous experiences have made them feel hopeless to change. And 4. They may be stuck in a rationalization loop. All of this, by the way, we know from decades of work helping people escape alcoholism and addictive substances. End quote. And of course, we're not saying it's like super. It's not exactly the same because, like, yeah, it's the same in the sense of like they need to change stuff in their own lives. But this is like a motivation that I don't know. It's like a personal thing, you know. Whereas, of course, veganism is like you're doing something to someone else, so it's a different level of motivation. I don't know. Um, yeah. So, quote, Tamirius warned that you shouldn't focus your time drawing out the other person's justifications for avoiding change, because the goal here should be to help them see how reliable their reasoning is, and in the process, as they produce their own counter arguments, put more emphasis on the other side of their ambivalence. Focus on why they aren't lower on the scale. It isn't easy, it takes time, and it often takes several conversations. End quote. That's yeah. I had one conversation like that with a guy like in the beginning who just would answer his own stuff because I would let him ramble, but it was good rambling. It was just like he was figuring things out himself. Um, and I would just push him a little bit. But he did a lot of it himself, so that was amazing. It's kind of hard to figure out though. Okay, so because she says like she talks about several conversations, yeah, obviously we don't necessarily have the opportunity to have several conversations with people. It would be great though, but I think something I've been implementing since reading this book, I mean one of the many things is at the end I always tell them about like our we have events, basically we organize events. I mean I organize events every 2 weeks with Wither Free in our town. And so it's social events and also activism events, of course. And so for the social events, everybody is very much welcome. They just have to not bring any non-vegan stuff there. Um, when it comes to the food, especially whatever. And so I tell them that and that they're welcome because so that they know that there's a community of vegans here if they ever go vegan kind of thing. And also, I also tell them I would love to grab a cup of tea if you'd like to talk more about this in the future. So please contact me, and I give them my social media so that they have like the possibility also for any questions they might have. So um, yeah, basically in all of the approaches we've seen, the building rapport is always central to it. And it's so counterintuitive in the sense of like, well, you have to hold them accountable, right? And you do. You can't just do like the report kind of thing. But it is central, unfortunately, because it makes it so much harder. But quote, no one will enter into active processing or become amenable to learning if us versus them feelings abound. End quote. So that means no debates. But again, if you have like a bad conversation, there's still the sleeper effect that could enter play like into play. So it's not like hopeless, but it makes it much harder for them to actually change their mind soon. So yeah, I feel like this takes. Okay, okay, this is cool, and also this ties into like the one of the books that we voted on last week in the first in the part one because we one of the books is Never Split the Difference, and it's basically about hostage negotiation. And of course, like this is very similar. And the stakes are even higher in our case when we're doing vegan outreach because, like, in a hostage situation, is a person doing a horrible thing one time, right? It's usually like a bomber or someone who's shooting whatever and has hostages. Basically, like they're gonna harm these few people, which is obviously already horrible. But we're talking to people who do that every day, several times a day. They exploit other animals all the time in numerous ways. So it's many more victims, and it's literally all the time. And also it's even worse in our case because society is with them. So they have the side of the social side to it, which is very important and very huge aspect. A very huge aspect of it is the peer pressure and the social side. So it's amazing. um, so it can. I mean, it helps me in some way to understand rapport in that sense. To remind myself that I'm basically a hostage negotiator. It's that important. Rapport is that important that you just imagine a hostage negotiator. They have to connect. They always connect to the person who's on the other end of the phone, about to kill or whatever, do whatever the fuck they want with those hostages. So they have to be extremely careful not to rupture that relationship and to, yeah, we have to do that as well. And also, it can be helpful to remember that even hostage negotiators that are very experienced and excel at what they do, they also still fail. So it's like an art, you know, not like a science. But hey, everybody, thanks for being here. Okay. The other strategy for persuasion is called topic rebuttal, the strategy of basically responding to claims with facts alone. It's preferred in academic circles like science medicine, for example, because in those circles there is a shared commitment to favor the conclusions with the most supporting evidence. Technique rebuttal, the other strategy, focuses on the methods used to reach that conclusion instead of the conclusion itself, like street epistemology, for example. Quote, told me that people are often hesitant to use technique rebuttal, especially in front of an audience, because it seems like the dark arts to go digging into the motivations and reasoning that leads another person to their conclusions. It feels like handing people the facts and walking away is taking the high ground. When your opponent seems emotional, we want to seem rational. So there's a sense that emotions should never enter a debate, especially over the facts. But experts on reasoning like Schmidt told me this was impossible because certainty itself is an emotion. End quote. Brilliant. I love this way of putting it. It's so good. Oh, God. Looking for a quote. Hmm. Quote, they were currently still conducting research into deep canvassing, producing several new studies focused on its application in other domains. The good news from their studies was that it still works. No matter where applied, it has been incredibly effective at everything from changing the candidate for whom people intended to vote to shifting attitudes on immigration. End quote. Yeah. From their experiments, the scientists Brookman and Kalla got these findings. Let me read them. Um, okay, quote. They found that when they employed deep canvassing without sharing their personal narratives, it no longer had any impact, while identical conversations that included storytelling still worked incredibly well. Rem- Quote, remove the non judgmental listening and story sharing, no effect. Put them back in, the effect returns, said Kalla. He defined the non judgmental exchange of narratives as a strategy where one attempts to persuade another by listening to their personal experiences while respectfully listening, then sharing stories of one's own while the other party listens. End quote. So that's why, like in outreach, I always, I mean, I tend to forget, but I really have to remember to share like why I'm vegan, and I basically share about like when I came across this footage when like a while ago, um, my world like kind of crumbled and stuff, and I realized that I mean it was just there's a feeling of horror and powerlessness, and um, I could not imagine being in their shoe, I mean their position, and I saw them for what they, I saw that they were slaves. I saw that finally that they were slaves and subjugated and blah blah blah, and reminded me of times in my life where I felt taken advantage of or like overpowered. And so yeah, having something like that, or like if you have like experience meeting the rescued victims in animal sanctuaries, that can be powerful as well. Hey Elliot, hey Benny, thanks for being here, guys. This one's gonna be shorter, I promise. um, we're more than halfway through actually. Um, okay. This is important. They also found that it doesn't matter if the stories you share are yours or someone else's, only that it involves the issue talked about. Even sharing a video of someone else telling a story was effective. But removing this exchange from deep canvassing also removed its persuasive power completely. So, sharing your personal story in a vulnerable way, like something about your emotions and like something vulnerable, basically, is incredibly powerful and it's necessary, apparently, for it to be working the way it's intended to. And so what I do is I share my experience as a vegan, and before that, I'm gonna share the like what I already talked about earlier in the stream, um, like this video going through the experience, the life of a cow exploited for her breast milk. Um, that way, they see they see the victim's perspective, which is the most important of all, but they also that way they also see the vegan's perspective, which they would obviously relate to more because I am a human who used to exploit other animals and they would become like me. Um, so, quote, the cleaner, simpler approach seems best, he said. I show up at your door, tell you a sympathetic story, listen to yours. Through that, you begin to humanize and empathize and demystify one another. That seems to be doing most of the work. Even the question about where you stand on a scale seems to help because the person on the other side realizes they will not be shamed or judged after you don't react negatively to the number they share. No matter what they say on the scale, you respectfully listen. Why do you feel that way? What led to it? Be a genuine, curious listener. That's what makes them feel open to considering new viewpoints. That's really what the first 3 or 4 minutes are about, he said. If I just show up at your door and launch into my story about transgender people, it feels unnatural. But by starting out with non judgmental listening, we develop rapport and trust. You're able to feel comfortable and be honest about what we are talking about. End quote. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, as soon as they feel like, yeah, as soon as this turns into a debate, you kind of this kind of screwed. You can bring it down. You can bring it down to something good, but it's always harder, of course, when it's starting to be in debate and to try to keep it as connected as possible. Okay, when rapport is established, and only then it's time for narrative. I don't know how to say that word. Narrative, narrative. Sorry, narrative transport. Narrative transportation theory proposes that when people lose themselves in a story, their attitudes and intentions change to reflect that story. Lots of research shows that for narrative transport to happen, a story must have three things: a component that keeps your attention from wandering, another that consistently evokes strong emotional reactions, and one that evokes mental imagery. The reason why it persuades people is because it can eliminate counter arguing. People get swept up in the story. It doesn't feel like the story is trying to change your mind, so the defenses are down. This is why we need footage that is following one individual animal victim of exploitation. Uh, I mean, I chose like the breast milk industry kind of thing because there's so many different things that happen, like the separation of families and the fact that it's secretions and flesh, and just how this just like yeah, there's a lot of different factors there, and also they also exploit it for their skin sometimes. So there's like a lot of different factors in it, but you could take any animal from any type of exploitation, like horses or fish, whatever. I mean, whoever, and it would be great. Just I think it would be best to take something that people also don't necessarily like. For example, don't necessarily go with pigs because because it's the flesh aspect, and so people would kind of go towards like vegetarianism a little bit in their mind. And you could go like, yeah, I just chose that random example, and at the end of my video that I'm making still, I'm briefly listing a few other ways non-human animals are exploited by humans, so that they know it's not like a diet thing. It's not like just secretions in flesh, the problem. And yeah, it's just going through the story, and I do believe that it has these three ingredients, which is strong emotional reactions because it's horrific. There's a moment where she's literally raped and stuff. The artificial insemination is extremely hard to watch, or like when she's crying for her babies or things like that. It's very hard to watch in the slaughterhouse footage. So that obviously is the easiest part for us to have in our footage. And of course, you don't have to do a voiceover. There's like a There's there's been movies like that, like going through like the individual story of a victim, that you don't even have to have a voiceover, but I do have a voiceover so that they kind of know what's going on and why, to kind of keep the story coherent. Um, and you can literally just use Dominion footage. By the way, Dominion is not like, I mean, at least in my country, in the US, it's not available on YouTube. But do not worry, because if you just and it might be temporary. If you just look like Google it, Dominion, and you'll find the website, and you can download it on your computer or whatever. So don't worry about that. And you might even be able, if you can't download it, you can just screen record Dominion with FreeCam 8, which is a free screen recording software. So don't worry too much. But yeah, it worried me when I saw that. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have a Dominion screening soon. And I'm like, my god. Um, Can you recommend a documentary? Absolutely. Hi, Renan. I recommend Dominion. Let me send it to you. There's so many great documentaries, honestly. That's a great one. And also, like, if you want to check the documentaries from, what are they called? Ah, let me find it. Yeah, it's a stupid name for the documentary. It's a stupid name. I'm aware of it, but it's a great documentary. So don't let that be a reason why you don't watch it. But I have to find it. Oh yeah, it's free. Of course, these are free movies. Um, so these are two documentaries I recommend. Thank you for asking. Thank you for like watching as well. Very much appreciate that. Hey Dennis, thanks for being here, guys. Learning together how to be better activists. Okay. Quote, among the persuasive techniques that depend on technique rebuttal, street epistemology seems best suited for beliefs in empirical matters like whether ghosts are real or airplanes are spreading mind control agents in their trails. Deep canvassing is best suited for attitudes, emotional evaluations that guide our pursuit of confirmatory evidence, like see a CEO is a bad person or a particular policy will ruin the country. Smart politics, which is like this is the type from the psychiatrist we talked about, like the uh, Temerius, and it was called I can never remember this thing. The change conversation thing, whatever. Smart politics is just her organization. Okay. Resuming the quote, smart politics is best suited for values, the hierarchy of goals we consider most important, like gun control or immigration reform. And motivational interviewing is best suited for motivating people to change behaviors, like getting vaccinated to help end a pandemic or recycling your garbage to help start a stave of climate change. End quote. And so yeah, I can hear like, like, well, then it should be great for us, right? Motivational interviewing, because we're trying to make people stop exploiting animals. And I agree to some degree, of course, because they have to change. But the thing is, it shares so much with deep canvassing that like it's already kind of part of it. But the reason why we're like, I think we just need to focus on deep canvassing and adapt it, of course, with the accountability questions that are Socratic method questions, is because like you're vegan once you get the stance of it, and then you will do everything you can to align with it, basically. Practically, like once you get why it's wrong to exploit animals and that it is wrong, you will be motivated to do anything else. It's you won't have to be like coached. You will just naturally want to, and it will be necessary for you to change. So that's why I don't really like, it's like treating the symptom instead of like the root issue. If you were to focus on behaviors instead of the stance. So, or maybe like if someone is addicted to a certain type of animal product. Brennan, well, let me know in the comments if you what you think about it. Very cool. Uh, about these. So then I guess we need a blend of motivational interviewing and deep convincing. I wrote that there because I hadn't finished the book yet, but like I don't think so. I don't think we do. I think deep convincing has all the elements, not all the elements we need, but in between the two, like I don't think we need to worry about that. So yeah. Quote, crossing the middle line from true to false or positive to negative is often the same amount of change as moving from certain to doubtful or very positive to slightly positive. Because of this, Karen Temerius told me not to get discouraged by seeking total conversions. They happen, but any change of any kind counts as changing that person's mind. End quote. And that is something we should keep in our head at all times, if even if it's very hard, honestly, because when if you haven't got like a total vegan, it feels like a failure, of course, but it's not. It's like like everybody talks about like it's about planting seeds or so a percentage. Really, we're trying to seek, and yeah, it's very healthy to feel that to think this way. You just do your very best, and then it's out of your hands, kind of thing. So, guys, I'm going to go to the restroom real quick. I'll be right. And just to say, I'm going to do outreach after this. Hey, it's motivating. The thing about like how face-to-face conversations are the best type of thing. Okay, where were we? Um, trying to find a quote. Uh, okay. Quote. On the surface, debate seems like a civil way to manage disagreements because instead of attacking each other with clubs, we attack each other with words. But this is a dangerous concept because the only way to win a debate is to avoid changing one's own mind. Only the loser of a debate learns anything new, and no one wants to be a loser. The more civil approach, he said, is to avoid asking ourselves which one of us is right, and instead ask ourselves why we see things differently. This creates a collaboration, both sides working together to figure out where their differences come from. Transparency leads to trust, he said, and trust assures us that we are being heard, that our agency is not at risk, and that it is okay to show vulnerability. Once that kind of trust is established or reestablished, disagreements become far more effective at opening both sides to considering challenging ideas. End quote. And another quote, contact changes minds. End quote. The contact hypothesis, also known as intergroup contact theory, is a psychological theory that suggests that positive interactions between members of different groups can reduce prejudice and conflict. So yeah, basically like having like, okay, so there's two different ways to read this. There's like the way of like vegans interacting with non-vegans in lots of different scenarios that can be helpful, like inviting non-vegans to vegan events or whatever the hell. Um, and there's like some peer pressure acting as well. And also, we need to reduce the distance between people and their animal victims. The contact hypothesis works when it comes to vegans doing it on behalf of other animals. Because obviously they relate to us more than they do other animals, so will help as well. When people are connected in networks to each other, then they can influence each other's behavior and decisions. This is called cascading behavior in networks. People decide to adopt the behavior of others based on their own personal threshold for conformity. Some people will have a high threshold, meaning they will ignore their internal signals only when the behavioral cascade is too hard to resist. Others will have a low threshold that doesn't take much cascading for them to conform, and of course, many people are in between. Quote, sociologists call a cluster of groups connected in this way a percolating vulnerable cluster, a clump of strongly connected groups with weak connections to other groups. Taken together, they share a perfect mix of thresholds at the point where they connect, allowing for a chain reaction, a shock as they call it, that begins in such a cluster, or any cascade that spreads far enough to reach it, stands a chance of flipping all the people in all its connected groups, whose combined influence will flip their neighboring groups, who flip their neighbors, and so begins a network wide cascade, be it a business, a city, or a nation. So if you have like a if you have like a vegan group like who is basically going into other groups, like I don't know, environmental groups or whatever the fuck, like if you like convince a few people, it will just be like a crazy, like it's a ripple effect kind of thing, and it happens through social groups. Just terrifying as well, but like because I mean vegans aren't super numerous, but we still we do have a bunch of people. It's just we need to be strategic about this. So basically, it can be helpful as well to have like a few vegans signing up for a class or normal class, so where there's a lot of non-vegans, just so that they are exposure to these non-vegans kind of thing. Quote, the old advice was that anyone looking to get information or behaviors to spread should seek out the ultra connected nodes in a network, the people that others look to for guidance on how to think and act. In reality, though, anyone can start a cascade. For an idea to spread across a network in such a way that it flips almost everyone from thinking in one way to thinking in another, you don't need thought leaders or elites. Sorry. The crucial factor is the susceptibility of the network. If there are enough connected people with low thresholds across groups, any shock, any person can start a cascade that will flip the majority of the population. As Watts says, you don't need an atom bomb to start an avalanche. Once the conditions are met, any bomb will do. End quote. So we never freaking know when we could have literally a vegan world. We've seen that already, like in the 2010s. Like there was a huge amount of new vegans at that point, and it fell to a lot of activists um, that it was going to. I mean, I wasn't there, but I've heard that it was like, oh wow, this is happening finally. But of course, it comes in waves, kind of thing. It's a normal thing in social change that it would kind of like go up and then a little bit down and then up, things like that. But it's not linear necessarily. But there were like a lot of conditions that were met that were conducive to a lot of people changing to vegan, even if it wasn't long term, unfortunately. Still something happened, and we never know when it's gonna happen, to a bigger degree or to a lesser degree. But yeah. Quote, change can creep along with no signs of meaningful progress for decades. It makes the status quo seem like it was unanimously agreed upon, stable, and eternal. It makes mind change seem impossible until one day a lucky strike causes so much change that everyone's thresholds are met within a percolating cluster. Then the culture widespread begins. A social change cascading this way will reach everyone except those who have difficult to meet thresholds or who are part of a cluster that is disconnected from the network, like a cult, an insulated religion, or a remote community. The rush to end slavery, the cascade of changed minds concerning same sex marriage, the rapid shift in marijuana laws, the volcanic spread of protests to end police brutality, these are just a few examples from American history. Critical junctures across the globe have routinely changed our concept of right to wrong, true to false, commonplace to taboo, and vice versa. End quote. So you never know. And that's a good thing because it's like, well, it might be sooner than we expect, you know? Yay, Laura. Um, I'll leave that on the screen. Okay. Yeah, so this is why I really love street outreach because you're like pulling people from inside wildly different networks, especially if you're in a city and especially if you're in like a college town, because people are just moving in and out all the time. And even more if you're in a city with lots of transit, like a college, yeah, like we're done after. But of course, it's better if you reach people in one group as well, so that they can influence each other. But like, I don't know. It's just a thought. Maybe it's actually not a good thing, but I don't know. um, we're getting to the last pages. Yeah, actually we're very close to the end, guys. So, quote, I told him I would try to change people's minds by reseeding the network. Who knows? Maybe it will take this time. Which is the point. Persistence plus luck is what changes minds, not genius. The ideas that change the world are the ones in the heads of people who refuse to give up. End quote. Had chills. No, but that's like so nice because it's like, yeah, like it's just gonna it might take forever, but like all you can do is what you're doing, and this is what it takes, you know, being persistent. Every so like every social campaigner has had to face this, so um, it's not like um, we're not like a an anomaly. It's a normal thing for social change to be so fucking long and so hard to make happen. So this is very comforting to me. I hope it is for you as well. Quote, at any one time for any given system, thousands of us are banging away at it, hoping to make the difference that changes the world. But no one knows where the vulnerable cluster is at. No one can will the system Yeah, no one can will the system to cascade for them. The system must become vulnerable. When it is, with so many people banging away, it is inevitable that someone will start the cascade that changes everything, but that someone isn't preordained. You need no special privilege to start striking at the status quo, because no one is in control. What you are in control of is whether or not you stop striking. And if the change you want to make is big, you may need to strike all your life. All throughout the struggle for racial equality in America, people who struck at the status quo had to pass their hammer down to fresh arms. Because once that struggle began, there was always someone hard at work, looking for the vulnerable cluster. The cascades that led to change weren't constant, but they were inevitable. The key is to never put that hammer down. The people who change the world are the people who persist. People like that Dave Fleischer, who has overseen an effort to knock on more than 13,000 doors, and he is still knocking. Often, but not every time, a knock leads to a change. He is sure of this, and the research backs him up. Maybe not this knock, but eventually that rapping on the door will shatter the status quo and change everything. End quote. Yeah, well, us is not necessarily a door, but it's in the freaking street or whatever, wherever it is. But same thing applies. It's so it's so inspiring because it's like we're not alone. Like all movements have to go through it. It's not that the vegan movement is necessarily doing a bad job or that we're doing it very wrong necessarily. So that's very comforting to me. Quote, you'll get much further if you frame it as respectful collaboration toward a shared goal based on mutual fears and anxieties, and demonstrate you are open to their perspective and input in the best course of action. End quote. If you need examples of deep canvassing and the other methods mentioned, I advise you to get the book. I thought the book, this book actually ended because this is not the end. It should have been the end, but it wasn't, and it ended in a way that was very underwhelming to me. But whatever, because he used street epistemology, and I don't like street epistemology. So yeah, it was strange. It was strange, but it is fine. So yeah, I'm going to be sending you links. So this is a very cool. Uh, Let me know what you guys thought about this book from the summary, or if you read it. So this link that I just sent in the chat is like basically you can even just search it. I'm actually going to share my screen because you might not access the chat right now as well. So, and Dominion, by the way, if you want to watch Dominion, it's like it's on. You can Google it. It's for free. Let me find this. What am I doing? I just used the link. So this is what I'm sharing with you guys, because if you're interested in the deep canvassing thing, this is how we can reduce prejudice. Like, it's a TED talk. This is the guy, one of the people who actually, this is the guy who's considered to have invented deep canvassing. But it was a very long process, and so he discovered it basically. And he's like an activist for gay rights and stuff. And he's dead now, though. So this is the first thing. I can put it in the description below after the live. I don't think I put it. And there's also, I'm going to share with you. Okay, so I'm going to share with you, this is the document I use for outreach. It changes sometimes. It's always evolving, of course. I'm going to share, and if you can't access it, just message me on social media and I will uh, send it to you. So so this is just like, these are just notes I'm trying to keep in mind, like the big points of the book and stuff. This is a photo of the book where he explains the steps. I don't use like the step like he actually asks about the scale 3 times. I only do it twice because in other in videos about deep canvassing online, when they use it for, of course, not vegan issues, but like they use it just at the beginning and at the end. So yeah, Yeah, so basically, I go into like kind of like rapport a little bit, and then I show a video. This is actually the video. I show the video without sound that I made myself, but I don't like it anymore as much. I'm going to use the one I'm making right now, which is okay, hold on. You might not even be you see, yeah, you probably see well. Um yeah, yeah, I'm going to use my new video now. And yeah, also I'm going to actually uh yeah, otherwise it's going to be a crazy mess. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about this? Okay, so I show something on my phone. Then how did that make you feel? Then I do this. This is the thing I use. I just put this on my phone. It's called, I don't remember what it's called, but I found it on Google. Yeah, the scale. Where do you stand on the scale of 0 to 10? 0 being you disagree, 10 you agree completely. Should humans stop using other animals and go vegan? And again, this is not like set in stone. You can rephrase things, whatever. Like it's just the way I do it. Um. Oh yeah, and I've also actually this is now a different at a different place. I forgot. This is actually here, I think, or here. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it's kind of free flow because sometimes they have more objections than other people, and it's kind of a mess. So yeah, just feel free to just look at it and take what you will. But this is like adapted from deep canvassing, but it's not totally for example, this is not deep canvassing, but this is like the accountability questions at the end. And this is my little, yeah, I'm asking them, where would you want me to stand actually on the scale? Yeah, so that's basically it. um just keep in mind I'm also new at this, so don't take it like as the word of god, and it changes all the time. So I would be very interested to hear your feedback on it in the comments below or anywhere really. And yeah, oh, I quit my little note stuff. Hold on. I had other things that I needed to say because we're finished with the book right now. Yeah, so I just wanted to, let you know, I'm going to do a little bit less, make less shorts and less content because I want to do more outreach in general, and so it might be a little bit different, but I'm still doing stuff. It's not necessarily online as much because of that, because it seems to be more effective, whatever. Um, Apart from that, yes, like I want to, let you know if you'd like to support my activism and access exclusive content. Down below there's a link to my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, but it's the same thing. It's the same memberships. It's just that Buy Me a Coffee is better for me in terms of like they take less percentage. But if you're more comfortable with Patreon because you've heard about it more, I understand. Some people don't like the Buy Me a Coffee thing, but whatever. And also, if you ever want to support me through YouTube, the super chats and stuff like that are available. And yes, I wanted to thank my patrons. Thank you, Nick, Hannah, Bacco, Mike, Ian, Zen, and Oliver for supporting me. It means a lot to me so that I don't have to get a job and I can just do this. So yeah, please go vegan, get active, and just like, learn to be a better activist over time. And yeah, keep a strong mindset. It's gonna be a slow burn. I don't know how you say that. It's like a long term effort. So take care of yourself as well. Thank you so much, Martin. And yeah, I'll see you guys. I think next week I have a live stream with someone, so we'll make that stream soon. But anyways, thanks so much for learning with me, and see you another time. Bye.